we may never quite be where we actually are, never quite touch the fullness of our possibilities. Instead, we lock ourselves into a personal fiction that we already know who we are, that we know where we are and where we are going, that we know what is happening, all the while remaining enshrouded in thoughts, fantasies, and impulses, mostly about the past and about the future, about what we want and like, and what we fear and don't like, which spin out continuously, veiling our direction and the very ground we are standing on. The book you have in your hands is about waking up from such dreams and from the nightmares they often turn into. Are you awake? Not in the sense of sleeping. I trust you're not dozing off this early in the episode. At least I hope not. But awake to the fact that you are alive right now. Awake to this breath, this moment, this experience of being here. So often we get lost in thoughts, fantasies, and impulses that sweep us away. We end up living inside a dream of our own making, sometimes which becomes a nightmare, and miss the life that's actually unfolding right in front of us. The question is, can you let go of that dream? Can you loosen your grip on the stories and the illusions long enough to truly arrive in this moment? It's an important question only you can answer for yourself, because no matter where you are in life, you have the power to choose right now to wake up, to let go, to step into the strength that comes from surrender. So to begin this episode, I have one final question for you, the listener. Are you here now? All right, welcome back to the I Am Here Now podcast. In this episode, we're exploring the teachings of Jon Kabat-Zinn, a pioneer often credited with bringing mindfulness into the modern world. As a professor of medicine and the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, Kabat-Zinn has spent decades showing how the simple act of presence can transform the way we live, heal, and connect with each other. One of his most beloved works is Wherever You Go, There You Are, and it captures that spirit beautifully. It's not about chasing enlightenment or escaping the chaos of life. It's about learning to meet each moment as it is, to sit in the present without wishing it were different, to remember that life is never waiting. It's always unfolding right now. For me, this book is a staple. I recommend it to everyone remotely interested in mindfulness or meditation. And, my copy is covered in scribbles, highlights, and post-it notes. It's almost like a living experiment of its own, which made it both honestly inspiring, but also a little overwhelming when it comes to this podcast and really to decide what to share with you here. But in the end, I realized that the best way to do this book justice was to slow down and to focus, to just take one section at a time. And that's why I chose just part one of the book, titled The Bloom of the Present Moment, and broke it into a 3-part miniseries. And across these episodes, I've been pulling out the themes that felt most alive to me. First we explored what it really means to bloom in the present moment. Then in the second episode, we looked at how to move with the waves of life. Now in this final part, we're stepping into a theme that might be the hardest, but also the most freeing: the strength of letting go. And a natural place to begin is with patience. Patience is often overlooked, but it's the soil that letting go really grows from. To let go, we have to trust. And to trust, we have to wait. We have to release the impulse to control or rush life and instead soften into its timing. Patience teaches us that letting go isn't about giving up. It's about giving space. It's about allowing things to unfold rather than forcing them. So let's start here with patience as we explore what it really means to find strength in surrender. And fortunately for us, this first chapter I want to talk about is literally titled Patience. So Jon Kabat-Zinn begins: if you cultivate patience, you almost can't help cultivating mindfulness. After all, if you really aren't trying to get anywhere else in this moment, patience takes care of itself. It is remembering that things unfold in their own time. The seasons cannot be hurried. Being in a hurry usually doesn't help, and it can create a great deal of suffering, sometimes in us, sometimes in those who have to be around us. And I think this needs to be acknowledged that when you lack patience and you don't allow things to unfold in their natural timing, this only causes yourself and those around you suffering. And, this is something that I can confidently say I have fallen guilty of. When things in the past haven't been the way that I wanted them to be, I have been guilty of trying to force something that isn't meant to be in that season. And really, all it led to was more suffering for the people in that situation, for the people around me, but, also for myself. And maybe really because it was causing suffering for me, my perception of everything, it caused suffering for others because I was suffering. Because I wasn't my best self and I was suffering, I was creating suffering for others as well. I think this is something that we got to acknowledge because it points to the vitality of patience. If we don't have patience, suffering follows. John Kabat-Zinn continues from this point by saying, patience is an ever-present alternative to the mind's endemic restlessness and impatience. Scratch the surface of impatience, and what you will find lying beneath it is anger. It's the strong energy of not wanting things to be the way they are and blaming someone, often yourself, or something for it. This doesn't mean you can't hurry when you have to. It is possible even to hurry patiently, mindfully, moving fast because you have chosen to. From the perspective of patience, things happen because other things happen. Nothing is separate and isolated. There is no absolute end of the line. The buck stops here, root cause. And, this is what patience is about. It's the cultivation of the ideology that nothing else needs to happen because the present moment is enough. It is about letting go of our need for the present moment to be anything other than what it is. It is the knowing that things happen because other things happen. But when you're facing the suffering and the pain, sometimes this can be very hard, right? I don't know if you guys have been in this situation, but when you guys are going through these painful moments and you just want it to be something other than what it is because you're feeling the pain, you're in it. How can we maintain patience for what that situation is? Well, in this next chapter, I think John Kabat-Zinn illustrates a very beautiful and enlightening example with the Dalai Lama. And he says, the Dalai Lama shows no anger toward the Chinese, even though the policy of the Chinese government for years has been to practice genocide toward Tibetans. When asked about his apparent lack of anger toward the Chinese by an incredulous reporter, the Dalai Lama replied something to the effect that, they have taken everything from us. Should I let them take my mind as well? Peace and a willingness to be patient in the face of such enormous provocation and suffering can only come about through the inner cultivation of compassion. A compassion that is not limited to friends, but is felt equally for those who, out of ignorance and often seen as evil, may cause you and those you love to suffer. So here, what John Kabat-Zinn is saying is that in order to cultivate patience, you also need to cultivate compassion for those around you. And really not just the people you care about, but also the ones who bring you harm, the ones you might see as evil. Because it's only through this compassion that we can truly accept what is and allow what is to be. As the Dalai Lama said, what is that they're already taken so much from me. Why should I allow them to take my mind as well? And through this, you can clearly see that this level of compassion has allowed the Dalai Lama to be able to see what the situation for what it is, but not allow the Chinese government to take anything more away from him, to just allow what is to be. And John Kabat-Zinn continues by saying, it needs to be practiced, cultivated. It's not that feelings of anger don't arise. It's that the anger can be used, worked with, harnessed so that its energies can nourish patience, compassion, harmony, and wisdom in ourselves and perhaps in others as well. So, here, as John Kabat-Zinn is showing, patience and compassion isn't about shutting out the emotions of anger as they arise amidst the pain and the harm that we're going through, but it's about using it to harness feelings of greater power, to use it to cultivate compassion, harmony, and wisdom, just as the Dalai Lama has used his anger to nourish and really cultivate the harmony that he is able to experience. And John Kabat-Zinn finishes by saying, "We know that things unfold according to their own nature. We can remember to let our lives unfold in the same way. We don't have to let our anxieties and our desire for certain results dominate the quality of the moment, even when things are painful. When we have to push, we push. When we have to pull, we pull. But we know when not to push too, and when not to pull." It's the understanding and the arrival to the present moment and the allowance of allowing things to unfold according to their nature. It's through this understanding that we are able to cultivate the patience, to cultivate the compassion that leads to harmony. So it is through our ability to let go of the way we want things to be and allowing them to be as they are and nourish what is to come through with acceptance that gives us the strength amidst the most challenging of times. And I think this is so powerful. If we are able to let go of the way we want things to be and allowing the universe to be as it is then that we can find wisdom amidst the pain, amidst the harm, amidst the most challenging of situations, like what the Dalai Lama is going through, for example, with the genocide of his people, with him having to flee his home. He's still able to find compassion for the people who are at fault. He's able to still retain his mind and not allow his mind to leave him, be where he is. And John Kabat-Zinn continues about the art of letting go in the chapter literally titled Letting Go. And here John Kabat-Zinn begins by saying, "There is something vitally important to be learned from the practice of letting go. Letting go means just what it says. It's an invitation to cease clinging to anything, whether it be an idea, a thing, an event, a particular time, or view or desire. It is a conscious decision to release with full acceptance into the stream of present moments as they are unfolding. To let go means to give up coercing, resisting, or struggling in exchange for something more powerful and wholesome, which comes out of allowing things to be as they are, without getting caught up in your attraction to or rejection of them." The point that is highlighted here is that oftentimes we want things to be a certain way. We have expectations for the way things ought to be in our lives. But imagine how limiting our perspective is in comparison to the infinite possibilities that the universe is constantly presenting. When we are able to fully allow things to be as they are and accept them for what they are without our own judgments, it is then we can clearly see what is. We can see the infinite possibilities at hand. And it is then this opens up solutions that can blossom in this moment. And I think this is huge when it comes to creativity. Before I created this podcast, I was working at a production studio, and I was fortunate enough to be able to work on Netflix documentaries for the NBA. Honestly, a lot of things that were dreams of mine when I was a kid. The one thing I learned about this experience was what creativity really is about. I think growing up, I grew up in such a structured environment, whether it be from football, just coaching in general. Everything was really structured. I had a schedule when it comes to practice, working out. Everything was structured. And to me, growing up, everything needed to be black and white like this. It needed to be structured. It needed to be scheduled. But the best thing about working the last 4 or 5 years in a creative space was that I learned that creativity really comes from opening ourselves up. Really, it comes from accepting the fact that there isn't a structure, there isn't just one way to do things, but opening ourselves up to see the infinite possibilities. And I think, in a way, this is only able to come from letting go. We are only able to create at our fullest version of ourselves when we're able to let go. So then John Kabat-Zinn continues from this point and he goes into deeper detail about what letting go really means. And he starts by saying, by holding, often desperately, to narrow views, self serving hopes and wishes. Letting go really refers to choosing to become transparent to the strong pull of our own likes and dislikes, and of the unawareness that draws us to cling to them. To be transparent requires that we allow fears and insecurities to play themselves out in the field of full awareness. Letting go is only possible if we can bring awareness and acceptance to the nitty gritty of just how stuck we can get. If we allow ourselves to recognize the lenses we slip so unconsciously between observer and observed that then filter and color, bend and shape our view. And so, once again, this is kind of pointing to what I kind of just talked about. You know, we are able to create, we're able to produce our best work when we are able to let go of the results we want, of the ways we've done things of the past, of the filter of the perspective that we have. When we are able to open ourselves up to the fact that maybe the way we see things right now is not the way it's ought to be, but we're open to all the possibilities at play. And so John Kabat-Zinn continues from this point by saying, stillness, insight, and wisdom arise only when we can settle into being complete in this moment, without having to seek or hold onto or reject anything. So here, John Kabat-Zinn is saying we are only able to find stillness when we let go of our preconceived ideas about the way things ought to be, when we let go of our fears about the future, when we let go of our judgments, when we let go of the pain of the past. Stillness is only able to be found when we let go of everything and allow ourselves to be transparent and open to what is. And I just want you guys to think about the word transparent. You know what? I'm going to actually pull up the definition of transparent right now because I think it's that important. So the word transparent in the Merriam-Webster dictionary is defined as two different things. One, having the property of transmitting light without appreciable scattering so that the bodies lying beyond are seen clearly. And the second definition, allowing the passage of a specified form of radiation. So to be transparent, it means really to allow yourself to be clear, to be empty, so that you could transmit this light. And what is this light? The light is really the light within. The light that comes from the higher universe. It's beyond your ego. It's beyond you. Being able to be transparent means to allow this light to shine. And as the second definition talked about, allowing the passage of a specified form of radiation. This is that radiation, it's that energy. To be transparent means to just allow your light to shine with radiation and confidence. I think nowadays we talk about aura. This is aura. Aura is allowing yourself to be transparent, letting go of your expectations, letting go of your viewpoints, your perspectives, and just allowing yourself to be. That is what aura, what energy is all about. And so, I think this is so important. To be able to actually practice this is harder than it sounds. It sounds really nice, to have aura, to allow yourself to be transparent. But when it comes to actually practice it, man, it is harder than it seems. It takes a great deal of courage and strength to allow yourself to be transparent. And the strength to let go of your ego's needs and to have the control and the strength to be weak. That is what it takes. And this is exactly what John Kabat-Zinn talks about in the next chapter, titled, You Have to Be Strong Enough to Be Weak. So he begins this chapter by saying, if you are a strong-willed and accomplished person, You may often give the impression that you are invulnerable to feeling inadequate or insecure or hurt. This can be very isolating and ultimately cause you and others great pain. In fact, you can all too easily get out of touch with your own true feelings behind the intoxicating shield of image. Thinking of yourself as getting stronger through meditation practice can create a similar dilemma. You can start believing in and acting out the part of the supremely invulnerable, correct meditator, one who has everything under control and is wise enough to deal with everything without being caught up in reactive emotions. In the process, you can cleverly arrest your own development without even knowing it. And, this is something, once again, I have fallen victim of. It's something I honestly still internally have to combat with. And I think this is a viewpoint that many men have to face, this isolation and pain that comes out of having or feeling that you have to appear, invulnerability to feeling inadequate or insecure or hurt. And I don't know if this resonates with any of you, especially the men who are listening to this. But man, this can be extremely taxing to my own well-being and can drain me. There's like this thing within me that I feel like I need to constantly be on top of my shit, to put it simply, that I need to have it all figured out, that I need to be strong. And maybe this is because I believe that this is what a man ought to be. A man ought to be strong. A man ought to have it all figured out, be a pillar, be stable. And in the process, I'm really not allowing myself to be. And I think John Kabat-Zinn points to just the problem with this here. And he continues by saying, so when you notice yourself building up an image of invincibility or strength or special knowing or wisdom based on your meditative experiences, thinking perhaps that you're getting somewhere in your practice, and you start talking a lot about meditation in a way that is self-promotional and inflationary, it's a good idea to bring mindfulness to that mindset and to ask yourself whether you are running away from the vulnerability or perhaps from grief you may be carrying or from fear of some sort. It's best to take another tack entirely and direct your attention where you fear most to look. And so I want to take a pause here and, this is what meditation, this is what presence, this is what mindfulness is about. It's not about being strong or immune to the pains that we encounter in our life. In the last episode, we talked about the waves that come in our life. And meditation isn't about shutting out these waves, becoming immune to them, becoming strong to these waves. And when I first got into meditation, this is what I believed. I thought that meditation was a practice to help me to become strong. So when the change in life came, I was strong enough to deal with them. And, at that time, I was dealing with a lot of pain in my life. And I really thought that meditation could take this pain away. But it became something that became self-promotional. And I felt that it almost exuded this image that I was strong and in touch with some type of superpower. And I became more interested with this image rather than the being, rather than the presence, rather than the mindfulness itself, the awareness itself. And in the process, I kind of lost the point. I wasn't present. I wasn't present with the people around me. I wasn't present with myself. And really in the process, I lost myself, I feel. And John Kabat-Zinn finishes this chapter by saying, you can do this by allowing yourself to feel, even to cry, to not have the opinions about everything, to not appear invincible or feel unfeeling to others, but instead to be in touch with and appropriately open about your feelings. Man. I didn't expect to get emotional at this part. He continues, what looks like weakness is actually where your strength lies. And what looks like strength is often weakness. In an attempt to cover up fear, this is an act or a facade. however convincing it might appear to others or even to yourself. Man, I don't even know why I got emotional there, guys. Oh, he talks about here allowing yourself to cry, and um, once again, I'm going to come back to this point of I think our society really instills that for men it's not okay to express these emotions, to allow yourselves to cry, and in the process we're not able to really feel how we truly feel. In a way, this is so constraining, and it could feel like a boa just suffocating you. You're not able to feel, you're not able to allow yourself to cry. Um, and, in the process, this has led to a lot of pain and suffering in my own life. Through me not able to allow myself to feel, allow myself to cry, I hold in this anger, hold in this sadness, this grief. In the process, it comes out in ways that aren't authentic to who I am. And I think this is so powerful. I'm not even going off of my outline here. This is really kind of just coming from this moment. But man, this is powerful. For all of you, especially the men listening to this, man, when you're able to allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to cry, it's here where you're really able to find your strength. As John Kabat-Zinn says, it's what looks like a weakness that is often our strength. And it's what looks like strength that's often our weakness. And I've discovered this for sure. The more I'm able to just allow myself to be, this is where my strength is. But when I try to put on a facade of knowing, of being tough, this is where weakness, this is where vulnerability lies. So, I think this is the main point from this chapter. When we are able to let go of our need to be strong, in control, and immune from pain or mistakes, it is then that we can allow our beings to be without judgment, without shielding the parts we don't want others to see. We are only able to be full human beings when we allow and are able to allow ourselves to be. This is something that must be cultivated, though. It needs to be practiced. And John Kabat-Zinn points to this practice in this last chapter titled Practice as a Path. And he begins by saying, in Buddhism, meditation practice is usually spoken of as a path. Tao and Dharma also mean the way things are, the law that governs all of existence and non-existence. All events, whether we see them on the surface as good or bad, are fundamentally in harmony with the Tao. It is our job to learn to perceive this underlying harmony and to live and make decisions in accord with it. So once again, life is a path that has an underlying harmony, which John Kabat-Zinn explains is, as Buddhist believes, the Tao or the Dharma, the way things are. And really, for us to be able to accomplish this goal of living a full and pure life, we need to be able to connect with this harmony. We need to be able to connect with the Tao and make decisions really in accordance of this. But how can we do this? And, John Kabat-Zinn kind of raises this question and provides the answer in this next part when he starts by saying, yet frequently, it is not exactly clear what the right way is, which leaves plenty of room for free will and principled action, and also for tension and controversy, to say nothing of getting lost entirely. That in this moment, we are on the road of life. The path unfolds in this moment and in every moment while we are alive. meditation is more rightly thought of as a way than as a technique. It's a way of being, a way of living, a way of listening, a way of walking along the path of life and being in harmony with things as they are. This means in part acknowledging that sometimes, often at very crucial times, you really have no idea where you are going or even where the path lies. I'm going to take a pause by kind of just pointing to this is something I've been trying to practice recently in this current chapter of my life. In this chapter of my life where I don't have a job, I don't have an income, my future seems uncertain. And rather than acting like I know what is the best way or direction to step forward in, I have just accepted that I don't know the right step, that I'm open to whatever presents itself. And you could say that this is a critical time where I, quote unquote, should have things figured out. But what I found is that there's a power in not knowing, but trusting that the way will figure itself out. That, once again, as we talked about in our last breakdown with the waves, that we are not the doer, that the way will present itself. And I have the confidence and the courage to step forward when the way does. So kind of continuing on, John Kabat-Zinn finishes by saying, it often happens that we can become trapped into believing too strongly that we do know where we are going, especially if we are driven by self-serving ambition and we want certain things very badly. It is useful at times to admit to yourself that you don't know your way and to be open to help from unexpected places. Doing this makes available to you inner and outer energies that arise out of our own soulfulness and selflessness. Getting caught up in the normal human tendencies of self-cherishing and arrogance and ignoring the larger order of things will ultimately lead to an impasse in your life in which you are unable to go forward, unable to go back, and unable to turn around. Letting go means to let go of our arrogance, to let go of the belief that we have it all figured out or that we can figure it all out by ourselves, and allowing yourself to not know where you're going, to allow yourself to not know what you're doing, and to allow yourself to not know how you are going to make it through. This is where strength lies. Once again, our strength lies in what looks like weakness, and our weaknesses lie in what looks like strength, because it is here you are able to tap into a freedom and have the internal energy to move forward with your full, authentic, pure self. To find strength in letting go is not about weakness. It's about courage. It takes patience to sit with what is, to loosen the grip on the life we thought we needed, and to trust the life that is actually unfolding in the here and now. And that's not passive. It's powerful. Because every time we let go, we make room for something new to grow. And that's really what this whole journey has been about. In the first episode, we explored what it means to bloom in the present moment, to wake up to life as it is happening. In the second, we learned how to move with the waves instead of fighting them, trusting that each one can carry us forward. And now we've come to the strength of letting go, the reminder that release is not a loss, but a return. And together, these themes form a kind of map. Bloom in the present, move with the waves, find the strength in letting go. This is the practice of mindfulness. It's not something abstract, but a way of living more fully right here and right now. And so as we close this mini series, I'll leave you with this. Life will always ask for your attention. It'll ask for your time, your presence, your energy. And the only real question is, will you give it? Or will you come back to your stillness? So, to wrap up, I hope you guys find stillness. I hope you guys find grounding. And I hope you guys find presence in the here and now. And per usual, take care and aloha.